and welcome to healthyhouseplants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. If you'd like to support our show, please use our Amazon affiliate link below. Today, another viewer-inspired video. This is a care video for anthuriums. So Elizabeth requested this video on anthuriums. She said that she has one that is massive and getting a little unwieldy, and the way she would like to improve it is to get blooms more often and more blooms. She only gets 1 or 2 blooms at a time and only in the spring. And any ideas for bringing back the beautiful waxy shine because of lower humidity. It doesn't have as shiny of the leaves as it once did. Okay, so we are going to talk all about the care for these beauties, and hopefully that will help Elizabeth and everyone, you too, everyone else. So anthurium flowers, also known as flamingo flowers, they were originally found in areas of the Andes mountain range in Colombia and Ecuador. And so they do enjoy warm spots in your home with a bit of extra humidity because of their origins. Interesting thing about them is the colorful quote, flowers of the anthurium are actually modified leaves. And these are modified leaves known as bracts. So the true flowers are actually what you see growing, the yellow growing coming out of the plant, and then the red is the bracts. But we call them flowers, right? So this is just a little tidbit here for you to if someone talks to you about the bracts on your anthurium, you'll know what they're talking about. So they come in a wide range of colors, generally red, white, pink, purple. The leaves are generally waxy, and they are actually epiphytes. And I did a video recently on what is an epiphyte. So it's a type of air plant. So where they grow naturally, they actually grow on trees. And that's why you will sometimes see that they have aerial roots coming out of the soil, like orchids also do that. So that is a sign for you when you see those aerial-like leaves. Monstera deliciosa does it as well. That is an indicator that the plant grows epiphytically in its natural environment, so you know. So you can trim those off if you want, or you can let them grow. The plants tend to like it if you let them grow some. So the anthuriums and a lot of the other epiphytes as well. Okay. So how to keep these plants healthy, happy, looking really good for you in your indoor garden. First of all, lighting. They need bright, indirect light. Direct light will scorch the leaves and flowers. You will get scorch marks on them. Don't look good, basically sunburn, scorch marks. Doesn't look good. It isn't a good look on them, especially how beautiful these plants are and what color and vibrancy and color they give to the indoor garden. So choosing a south window but a few feet back so it doesn't get too much bright light. An eastern window a lot of times can give a nice bright light in the morning, but that's not too harsh. They do really well under full spectrum lighting. As a matter of fact, the growers, when they're growing them for sale, are using the full spectrum lighting to grow them. So that is a really good option. And the great news about full spectrum lighting is that it simulates daylight. However, it doesn't do what the sun can do and burn. It generally won't burn plants. So if you have a dark area, you have a dark place, you live in a darker apartment or something, a house or something, using the full spectrum lighting can allow you to grow really pretty anthuriums. And during the winter, they will be able to handle less light. They won't be growing as actively at that time. Water, so watering them. Water thoroughly when the first inch of the soil becomes dry to the touch. And you want to water until the water comes out the drainage holes. While you want to avoid overwatering anthuriums, you definitely don't want to drought them, because when you drought them, the leaves turn brown and the plant just, in terms of flowering, it's not going to happen, because the plant is like, okay, I can barely survive here, because you haven't, remember, it's coming from a tropical locale. It needs the moisture. So the better the watering, the better you do at watering, the better the plant is going to do. The signs of stress in terms of when they really are thirsty, they will lose the sheen on the leaves some. When you pick up the plant, it's going to be very lightweight. The leaves may also do a little drooping or puckering as well. So something to keep in mind. When you do water with lukewarm to lukewarm water. And you want to do that with all plants, but in particular, definitely with tropical plants, which a lot of houseplants are, the anthuriums for sure. If you water with cold water your houseplants, it can cause root dieback. It can also cause spotting on the leaves. The anthuriums like to have, when you say like, but they're susceptible to leaf spotting as well. If you suspect that you do have things like fluoride, a lot of chlorine in your water, I have a video on how to deal with that too. You might want to use RO water, distilled water. If you're having some problems with that, you're having problems with leaf tip burn on your anthuriums, you might want to try a different water and see if that helps as well. Back to overwatering, because it is possible to overwater, very common. When you overwater, you're going to get yellow leaf tips. As opposed to the brown leaf tips or the brown leaves when you underwater, you're going to get yellow leaf tips if you're overwatering your anthurium. So that's something to keep in mind. And also, too much or too little water is going to affect flowering, and it's going to, if the plant has already started flowering, it may just stop flowering and the flower doesn't develop. So that's something to keep in mind. You want to do this, the keeping the soil moist during the growing season from March through September, and the other times of the year they're not going to be cycling water as much, and you're going to want to be more careful about not overwatering during the cooler months of the year. Humidity. I've touched on this a little bit. Most anthuriums thrive on humidity. So if your humidity level is less than 50%, then you're really going to want to do whatever you can to raise the humidity as much as possible. And some of the ways you can do that is with humidity trays, with misting, but you have to mist a few times a day, putting in the moisture areas, more humid areas of the house, like the bathroom, as long as the bathroom has enough light. Kitchens sometimes get a little more humid as well. Use a hygrometer to check and see what the moisture level is in your home, what the humidity level is in your home. It will tell you that it's much easier than trying to say, I think my home's dry, when you really don't have an idea, right? So use a hygrometer. I'll put some links below for some hygrometers, and they're pretty relatively inexpensive for the great information that they give you. Another thing to keep in mind is that the more plants you have, the more humid your air will be, because plants transpire. When they transpire, they emit humidity into the air. So the good news is, if you have your anthurium bunched with a bunch of with other plants, they're going to humidify each other and bring the humidity up a little bit, which could be just enough as to what the anthurium needs. You can also use a humidifier for them. That's another thing. If you're up for that, I do have a video on that and the do's and don'ts and that sort of thing. So linking that below as well. Now temperature. So temperature, they like it on the warm side. So they are digging it when it's like 70 to 90 degrees. And so if you're getting real cool, like in the 60s, especially the lower 60s and the 50s, the anthuriums are not going to do well for you. So you're going to want to figure that out in the winter time, somewhere where you can get them to a warmer location, or put them on a heating mat. I have a video on that too. It's a seedling mat, but it heats the roots, and that will get them through winter. And a lot of times can also initiate some flowering as well. But avoid putting them near heating and air conditioning vents. That a lot of times people think, oh, I'll just put them near the heater especially in the winter, because then it'll heat them up. Well, it will also dry them up because it's very drying, and air conditioning vents are too. So fertilizing during the growing season, which I've mentioned, spring through summer, very early fall, feed them once a month with a complete, well-balanced fertilizer. But at half or quarter strength. Too much fertilizer for the anthuriums can harm them. Remember, they are epiphytes, they grow, which means they grow naturally in trees. They don't grow generally in the soil. We are growing them in the soil, so we're already growing them in not normal conditions for them. And they absorb nutrients through the air and through water and through things like leaves falling on them and stuff. So that's not, those are very mild forms of fertilizing. So that's what they're used to. So that's why you want to do even air towards more towards the quarter strength of that fertilizer, and a liquid fertilizer is good. Now, if you want to encourage more blooming, however, use a fertilizer high in phosphorus as well, in addition to the other fertilizing. Also use that at half strength, and even a quarter strength. Do that spring through summer. Soft rock phosphate is one thing that does really that will do that for you, that will provide that needed phosphorus, and it also has some calcium in it as well. So that will help with the problem of not flowering, or just to get them to flower more. Also, another tidbit here is, in order to get them to repeat flower, allow the anthurium to rest for 6 weeks with a lot less water during the winter at 60 degrees. So I know I mentioned to you they're not going to be happy if you do that. However, this is one thing. If you're having a problem with your anthurium blooming regularly throughout the rest of the year, you can basically you're pushing it into a dormant state. And this is something you can do with various types of houseplants when they're not, basically, generally speaking, when they're not flowering and or fruiting for you. Not all, but this works for some. You need to make sure you know what you're doing and don't do it to all of them. But and for instance, things like Christmas cactus, there's a point where you don't, and I have video on them too. There's a period where you need to watch watering, so that because they're budding up at that time. So that's a similar. It's not the same thing. It's a similar sort of a thing here. So. That may cause the plant, obviously you want to make sure that you you need to water it. You're just going to water it more sparingly, and it is during the winter months at a time when they would be cycling less water anyway. So that is something to keep in mind. If a flower is if the flowers turn green, sometimes that means that they're not flowering at the right time, but that's generally more for outdoors. However, indoors it can be. So if you ever get a green, sometimes you'll get a green spath. It doesn't mean that they're always going. Doesn't mean it's reverting to green. It just means that the temperature, maybe the time of year wasn't exactly correct for that. So usually the next time it blooms, it'll be a colored one for you. So also to keep the plant healthy, happy, doing well for you, flowering, to pot up on a fairly regular basis, because crowded roots are going to stunt the plant's growth. Use a mix with peat moss or core, base, which retains moisture and nutrients. I'll put some links below there. When the flowers do fade and you're ready to remove them, cut them at the base of the stem, so all the way down to the base of the plant. You don't want to cut into the crown of the plant, but you want to cut them off all the way. Don't leave parts sticking out, because that will also cause them to not reflower as quickly as they could. Okay, so some other things about the not flowering, because this is one of the biggies for anthuriums. Any other things to keep in mind here? Just to keep in mind that they can be temperamental, and trying with the fertilizer. And I would try one thing at a time, so you know what actually worked, right? So a lot of times people think, I just want it to flower, I'm going to do this and that and the other thing that it said, and then when it does flower, if it does flower, then they're not sure what worked, right? So try the high phosphorus first, fertilizing with that first, and then maybe at the next winter you could try cutting back on the water a little bit and pushing it into that state of dormancy and that sort of thing. Okay, now if you're having spotting on the leaves, because this is another really common problem here, one thing is for one thing, leaves after a time will age, like as they do on other plants too. So at that point, you'll want to remove them so that new foliage can come in. Also, however, if you're getting a over yellowing, over browning, and you're getting a lot of leaf spotting, it's a leaf blight, which is unfortunately a leaf disease. Oftentimes it is caused by watering issues, so try to rectify those issues and remove those leaves so it doesn't spread, and hopefully the plant will be okay. And another thing that can cause those browning leaves is sunburn. As mentioned, they should not be put in direct sunlight, so they very easily sunburn. They aren't used to that direct sun. They're not made for that direct sun. So make sure that you don't have them too bright of a sunlight. And actually, too much sun for too long can kill the plant. So keep that in mind. All right, so the indirect light is mentioned. And that is it. Pruning wise, as mentioned, you want to prune out the older leaves, but it works to let them grow big, as Elizabeth has done, and hopefully when you get the flowering part under control, and then you're going to have even more flowers and a more gorgeous plant, right? So that usually is the goal, but even one flower on one of these beauties is very nice too, although the more the better. So that is it for how to keep anthuriums happy, healthy, looking good in your indoor garden. Please let me know if you have any other questions in the comment section below. Thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And please check the bell if you'd like to be notified when new videos are released.